Here's a classic American diner dessert to complete your fast, fresh meal. Coconut tart. Make it anytime with a few ingredients from your pantry, like this coconut. I've toasted 3/4 of a cup of coconut, and one thing that you have to be very careful of is that this coconut burns very quickly, so keep an eye on it. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes in a 350-degree oven. I'm going to start by making my crust, and we use this, what we call a scoop and swoosh method, which we fill a 1/4 cup measuring cup and just level it off. And what that does is make sure that we're not packing in the flour. And it's very easy to go off when you're measuring 5 times like this. So we make sure that we level it off completely. Just using the back of a butter knife or a palette knife. That's 3, 4. This is a real simple crust. It just has flour, butter, a pinch of salt, and a little bit of sugar. And that's 5. And then to that we add 1/3 of a cup of sugar, 1 stick of butter that's been cubed, and a nice healthy pinch of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon. It's very important that the butter is cold. And we use the pulsing just so we can get little bits, almost like crumbly cornmeal, because we're going to press this crust into the tart pan. We're not going to roll it. You can see that it's starting to come together. There we go. You can see those nice little lumps. Okay. This is a great trick. If you put your finger in the bottom of the hole, the blade won't fall out and everything else will. Okay, put that on the side. And then you're just going to press this in right up to the sides. If you over-process this, you're going to have a real mealy crust, and that's why it's very important to have that cold butter. And then I'll work my way into the center and flatten out the middle part. Okay. Now, because we've developed a little bit of gluten with the moisture in the butter, we're going to let this rest in the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes. So after it's frozen, we're going to prick it with a fork and then bake it in a 350-degree oven until it's fully baked and nice and golden brown, and that should take about 20 to 25 minutes. Now I'm going to start my custard. 2 cups of whole milk. You want the whole milk because you do want a little bit of fat in this custard. I'm going to get this on medium-high. What we're going to do is steep 3/4 of a cup of coconut for about 10 minutes. With 3 eggs. A 1/2 cup of sugar. So as soon as we add that sugar, you want to whisk it immediately to prevent that sugar from cooking that egg yolk. Just give that a nice whisk. Okay. Another 1/2 cup of milk. 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. You could use flour, but cornstarch is going to give it a much lighter texture. Give that a whisk. You want to make sure you get all of those lumps out. Okay, now this is steeped for 10 minutes, so we're going to strain out the coconut. So we want a nice smooth custard. We don't want to have any lumps in that custard. And you can press out. You want to make sure you get all of that milk that's been infused with the coconut. Just gently press it. Okay, now this goes back into the pot. There's a little coconut in there. You don't have to worry too much. Okay. Turn the heat back on. Now I'm not going to pour these eggs directly into the pot. I'm going to take some hot liquid and temper those eggs so they won't scramble when we throw them into the hot liquid. And then just as this comes back to a boil, we're going to add this. It's the same procedure you use for making ice cream or puddings. You can see it's starting to thicken already. So when it's boiling around the edge, that's just not enough. You want to make sure that it's boiling in the dead center. That'll ensure that the cornstarch is activated and the pudding is going to be thick. Okay, it's boiling in the dead center, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to shut the heat, transfer it back to this bowl. And the last, we add a teaspoon of vanilla, just for a little extra flavor. I'm just going to cover this with plastic wrap to prevent the skin from forming. And this has to chill for at least an hour. And that's it. So I'm putting a third of the coconut that's been toasted on the bottom. Then I'm going to put the coconut custard that's well chilled on top, kind of mound it up in the center a little. Then we're going to put another third of the toasted coconut. And then the fresh whipped cream on top of that, which is just heavy cream that's been whipped nice and light. And then top it off with the balance of the coconut. You might be tempted to eat this right now, but you really want to chill it for about 30 minutes. This way it's nice and firm and it'll be easier to cut. This coconut tart is light, easy to make, and it's really everyday food.